everyone. On a scale of 1 to 10, that was a -2. Good afternoon, everyone. For my perfectionists, give me a 10. Good afternoon, everyone. I bring you blessings, health, for grace, peace, and joy, and justice. By way of brief introduction, my name is Reggie Hubbard, so the Yoga with Reggie, that's me. Yeah, black and brown people do yoga too. In fact, it's our indigenous wisdom. My pronouns are he, him, and I humbly stand before you today acknowledging that we are on the unceded territory of a variety of native people of Iroquois, Lenape, Shawnee, Wyandot, Mohican, and Tissaguarami, blessings, and ask their blessing on our event and the endeavors that spring forth from this event. I'm a native from the DC metro area, the DMV, so let me state my unequivocal support for DC statehood as a pivotal part of any voting reform. I'd also like to acknowledge my ancestors, both biological and spiritual, and through their lived experience, either through my lived experience or through the wilds of my imagination. And I ask their blessing upon the words that I offer, and may the words of my mouth and meditation of my heart be of benefit to all beings, reducing harm in the world and awakening the sweet aroma of actualized justice in our broken world. Ashe and Amen. I am the founder and chief serving officer of Active Peace. I'm a recovering political operative. It's like a 12-step program here. I'm a recovering political operative. And I'm a trained yoga and meditation teacher that works to bring peace to activists, operatives, and organizations through wellness as a foundation, not as an afterthought. And many of you have come to my yoga classes and meditation classes over the years. Shout out to those who came to the Prince class this afternoon. And given the fact that the world that we hope for requires us to heal ourselves first, please reach out and connect to me if I can be of service to you, all right? And as I've walked around this week, many of you I'm meeting for the first time or in person. Some of you have looked at me quizzically, and look, I never left the movement, I just left my old job, right? I'm still in this game, right? And some of you probably never heard of me and don't care to, and I'll just say to you humbly, of course, you may never heard me, but I promise you'll never forget me, all right? But I'm not here to talk about me. I fervently believe in the power of we. We the people, we the movement, we the mighty heirs of a legacy and midwives to a beautiful future that beckons us if we joyously hold hope for it. The theme of this afternoon is how we win and save democracy. And my task and blessing is to set the table for our other speakers to bring us home, to offer you a word of joy and inspiration as we face the work ahead of us. We must remember that our work is spiritual and therefore sacred. Our mental and physical health are sacred. And I'll say this to my overachievers, you cannot have a fresh idea from an exhausted mind. I'll say that again for my homies in the back. You cannot have a fresh idea from an exhausted mind. All right? And I believe that we hold the legacy from time immemorial to defy the status quo, both internal and external. And like Brother Mondale mentioned at the beginning of our time together, we gotta stop projecting faulty notions of what we think ain't possible, okay? Who says we can't keep majorities in the House and the Senate? Who says that, right? Because these are probably the same people that said we would never impeach Donald Trump, and we did it twice, okay? They said nothing would ever happen in the 117th Congress, and if y'all been paying attention, we've been doing some things. We have the winning message, and we have the numbers on our side, so to me, as an organizer, it's a matter of mindset and deep organizing. We approach the task that we have with joy, confidence, and hope. And if you listen close enough, you can hear the cheers of our ancestors and the future generations calling us forth in this moment. Our ancestors know tough times, so their cheers are rooted in resilience, wisdom, and lived experience. Future generations are cheering us on because they know we're up for the task at hand. But in order for us to rebuild and reimagine the world, we must change some things about how we do our work, because as Audre Lorde reminds us, the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. The master's tools are driven by fear, hatred, and control. So our tools must be driven by courage, love, and freedom. Sonia Renee Taylor talks about how the pandemic has given us new awareness, and that new awareness requires new tools. And the tools I want to talk to you about today are well-being and defiant joy. We tend to sweep aside discussions about well-being and hope as like wishy-washy or too woo. The only woo I follow is Wu-Tang, but like, or you say, yeah, that's cool, but we have more work to do. True. And how boring is that? How boring is that? Sorrow and joy can live together, and by virtue of the task that we've had to make sense of what's happened over the past several years, we all have a sense of fatigue, right? We're tired, and that's cool. And maybe we're used to bad news, and maybe we're comfortable with bad news, and we don't want to be disappointed, or we just don't want to have the energy to hold out hope. So I have 3 comments to that. 1, I believe to the core of my being in the power of transformation, courage, hope, and love. I believe that grind culture is and its self-destructive tendencies are rooted in white supremacy and capitalist norms that demonize rest and call joy haughty and unnecessary. We can do better than that. And probably most importantly, I don't want to be a part of a movement that doesn't dance and celebrate. You can miss me with that shit. So to model this behavior, I brought one of my gongs. And I'm going to name a few things that we should celebrate with joy. So let's begin by the fact that we're here, celebrating in person. We flipped the House in 2018, impeached the motherfucker in 2019, and removed him in 2020. We won 2020 by such margins that they couldn't believe it and had to make up a big lie. We won majorities in the Senate and the House and passed powerful legislation with a slim majority. We have a sister named Ketanji, the Honorable KBJ, with locks, a public defending pedigree, and impeccable history of service as the first black woman on the Supreme Court. We heard this week about the inspiring work that's happening here in Western Pennsylvania and Philadelphia, and as Summer Lee reminds us, we don't fight the power, we take the power. And so what I'm going to do, one more thing, how about ALU? So I'm going to count to 3, and when I get to 3, exclaim something that you're happy about in this moment. So, and it's going to be a noisy mess, but so what? So's the movement. 1, 2, 3. Yo, how did that feel to celebrate something? We owe it to ourselves and future generations to hold space for joy in hard times because, to quote Southern Black church parlance, trouble don't last always. And if our heads are always downcast, we may miss a beautiful rainbow that exists in the storm. And I'll close this time together by offering a recipe that I offered. So last week I got to give a keynote speech in honor of my 96-year-old grandma as she received a Lifetime Achievement Award from her local NAACP. So think of this in the cadence of a grandmother's recipe for resilience. First, you take a heaping cup of adversity and let it settle. Add prayer and faith as a leavening agent to the cup of adversity. Allow tears to add liquid and salt to the adversity, prayer and faith. Then have a heavy pour of humility to soften the ego and allow discernment to rise. Blend in a generous portion of compassion to allow yourself to feel what you feel, sadness, anger, disappointment, sorrow, because if you don't allow for these emotions to take root or take rise, their suppression might make the batter a little too bitter. Add in a pinch of grit and a heaping spoonful of tenacity to season the mixture and make it a little spicy. I mean, this is Netroots, we gotta make it spicy, right? Add a generous amount of sweetness and tenderness to counter hard-heartedness that might arise. Because as my grandmother often counseled, make sure the words that come out of your mouth are sweet because you may have to eat them one day. Fold in some humor and lightheartedness so the mixture doesn't become too heavy and unable to manage. And prior to cooking, add a dash of perseverance, the continued effort to do or achieve something despite difficulties, failure, and opposition to cut any defeatism that may arise from the acidity of adversity. Allow the mixture to bake at an even temperature in the oven of perspective so as not to burn out. And when the dish reaches a desired consistency, let it cool so wisdom can settle in. Sprinkle generously with hope, the steadfast belief in a brighter tomorrow, and serve with joy and peace. I wish you all rich blessing for peace, safety, health, and continued success. May the celebration of joy that we just had tear down the poison of pessimism and unleash the power of passion, purpose that resides in our hearts. When we win, when we have belief and hope and take care of ourselves and one another. Ashe.